Once I am home after the retreat, my family thinks I am enlightened. And they expect me to behave a certain way. How do I deal with that? You know, I guess it depends on your family. You know, we talk about parents and things like, since I am technically a minister, my mom expects me to be her minister, and she expects me to like say grace and do all these types of things, and I have to explain to her that's not my role. Or she says, you know, I'm really having this issue, can you come over and talk with me? I said, no, I'm not your counselor, I'm not your minister, you need to talk to someone else. So I don't have that exact experience described here, but I do have sort of a family issue in that regard. You can be enlightened and treat your family like normal people. So I would probably explain to them, no, what you need to do, buy my book and hand it to them and say, this is what I'm doing and this is what you can expect out of me. And then leave it at that. But again, I don't know if your family is contentious. I don't know if they are just annoying. You know, there can be a whole different gamut of what that expectation of being enlightened means. But what I would say is just explain to them what you learned on the retreat. Say, I'm not enlightened. Or say, I am. I don't know, maybe you are. Say, this is what I learned on the retreat and this is what I'm practicing. Like, be very clear on what you are doing. That way they won't have that false expectation or ideal, or they won't make fun of you, you know, because that's a thing too, like, oh, you must be enlightened now, you know, you should behave this way, because that happens too. That happened to me and my friends often. So just if they do that, stop them right there and say, well, this is what I learned on the retreat, so this is what I'm working on, and then they'll know exactly what you're up to. I think that's probably the best way to approach it. You can even ask them, well, what do you mean by enlightened? What do you think enlightened is? And then open it up to a discussion. Now you can like clarify very well, you know, what's going on. You know, I think that's a very important thing that we often overlook, is clarifying what you're up to. Because people get a false idea, even in the spiritual community. Oh, you went and learned Kriya Yoga, and they've read Autobiography of a Yogi. You must do this. Well, maybe you set aside some time and you say, well, let's talk about what this is really about. And it gives you an opportunity to not hold yourself above them, but to educate them on what it's really like. And I think that we need more of that. You know, we need more of that.
So you don't suggest we close our eyes, we breathe, pretend we go somewhere, and then look at them like we just foresaw something really bad.
Well, you know, Robert was talking about our mutual friend Jim Norton, and he's in his 80s now, and he's a retired Methodist minister, and he took his role very seriously, and he was very good at what he did, and he dealt with all the frustrations of organizations and just, you know, religious things in general. And he would tell stories of when, is it the Jehovah's Witness that would come to your house and talk to you about stuff? He would tell stories of how he would love it when the Jehovah's Witness would come by, because he was a Duke-trained minister, like he knows his stuff. And these little young kids would come, and what he would do was sort of engage with them based on what he knew. And he wouldn't tell them that he was a minister. But after he started meditating, this is what he started doing. They would come to his house and they would say what they had to say, and he'd sit back and he'd say, well, I think I need to pray on that a little bit. And he'd sit there for 20 minutes or so, quietly, and meditate essentially. And then he'd come out and he'd say, well, I've meditated and prayed upon it. And then he would use his theological training to like explain it to them. And he said it took him maybe about 2 or 3 questions. And then they just said, well, maybe we should probably leave. So I have actually been really waiting for a Jehovah's Witness to show up, because I want to try that too.
In conjunction with that question, like people do ask me, you know, what kind of meditation you do. And I really haven't been, to me it's so big in my head, I don't know how to distill it to someone who has no familiarity with it.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably just keep it as simple as, well, we practice breath awareness, or we learn to turn our attention within to focus on the breath, to let go of distractions, to be present. And that's pretty much it,
Okay.
you know.